The dancing plague of 1518, when hundreds danced until they died. It began with one woman. In July of 1518, in Strasbourg, then a city of the Holy Roman Empire, a woman named Frau Troffea stepped into the street and began to dance. There was no music. There was no festival. She simply danced alone in silence with a look on her face that witnesses described not as joy but as compulsion, as though she were being forced by something she could not resist. She danced for hours. Then she danced through the night. Then through the next day, and the next. After 6 days of uninterrupted dancing, Frau Troffea collapsed from exhaustion. Her feet were bloody and torn. She could barely breathe, but she did not stop, not by choice. She had to be physically restrained and removed. And while she was recovering, something even more alarming began. Other people in Strasbourg began to dance, not in imitation, not in mockery, but with the same wild, compulsive, uncontrollable energy. By the end of the week, 30 people were dancing. By the end of the month, the number had reached 400. The city authorities of Strasbourg were baffled. They consulted physicians who concluded the dancing was caused by hot blood, a medical imbalance, and that the cure was more dancing. They cleared a large hall and hired musicians to accompany the dancers so they could dance themselves to exhaustion and recovery. It was one of history's most catastrophically wrong medical decisions. The music made it worse. More people joined. The dancing accelerated. People began collapsing from heart attacks, strokes, and sheer exhaustion. They were dying on the dance floor. Contemporary records from the period are explicit. This was not voluntary dancing. This was not celebration. People begged to be stopped. They screamed while their bodies continued to move. They wept as their feet tore open against the cobblestones. Witnesses described the dancers' eyes as glazed and vacant, their expressions ranging from terror to vacancy. The Bishop of Strasbourg recorded in his official documents that dozens perished during the height of the outbreak. Some from heart failure, some from stroke, some from sheer physical collapse. The most widely accepted modern theory is mass psychogenic illness, sometimes called mass hysteria, a well-documented phenomenon in which psychological stress manifests as physical symptoms across a group. The Strasbourg of 1518 was a city under enormous strain: crop failures, famine, syphilis outbreaks, plague. The population was deeply superstitious and catastrophically stressed. Some researchers believe the dancing began as a psychological response to overwhelming despair and spread through social suggestion and the power of collective belief. But mass hysteria does not typically kill dozens of people, and it does not typically produce the specific physiological symptoms documented in Strasbourg: the uncontrolled muscle movement, the altered consciousness, the physical damage to the body. A competing theory points to ergotism, poisoning from the ergot fungus, which grows on rye grain and contains compounds chemically similar to LSD. Mass ergot poisoning could cause hallucinations, spasms, and involuntary muscle movement. But ergotism typically causes constriction of blood vessels, not dancing. A third theory, proposed by historian John Waller, combines psychology, theology, and the specific medieval worldview. Saint Vitus was a Roman martyr believed in the medieval church to have the power to curse people with dancing if they offended him. Waller argues that the deeply religious population of Strasbourg may have collectively believed they were under Saint Vitus's curse, and that belief alone, reinforced by community and despair, was powerful enough to trigger real physical symptoms, belief strong enough to make people dance, belief strong enough to kill them. The dancing plague of 1518 ended as suddenly as it began. The city authorities eventually moved the dancers out of Strasbourg to a shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus, where the afflicted were prayed over, given red shoes, and slowly the dancing stopped. The official death toll was never recorded. Estimates range from dozens to over 100. Nobody knows why it started. Nobody knows why it stopped. Similar outbreaks, smaller in scale, have been documented as recently as 2011. History, it seems, has not yet finished dancing.